John Lill. We're here to celebrate your 70th birthday, and also I think probably 60 years in the business, more or less.
Yes, I gave my first concert when I was 9, so it's a fair time, but how the years fly.
And we're here in Yves Bergman's fabulous home here with 2 pianos, just to celebrate the occasion. So obviously no stranger to the piano, but was it always certain when you were growing up that you were going to be a pianist?
Yeah. I was obsessed with music since the age of, well, my mother said I was picking out tunes on a neighbour's piano when I was 3.5 or 4. And apparently it was almost impossible to get me off that piano. I was so passionately keen on writing music and teaching myself to play. I don't know where it came from. It's very, very, it was very, very intense, always has been, and dominated my life really since that time. And when people said, well, you can't succeed because, you know, you come from a poor family and so forth, East London during and just after the Second World War, people laughed at the idea that I thought I'd be a concert pianist. But of course, I think I may have had the last laugh because I think I'm still in the business and very happily pursuing that challenge.
It's a very overused word, but the word prodigy. Would you have seen yourself as a prodigy, or was that that's a very hard thing to pin down?
Not for me to say, because to me it was inevitable and natural. But I did learn very quickly. I learnt all the Beethoven sonatas from memory when I was about 14, I think, by then, because I regarded that music as so incredibly secure. It was like a security blanket, if you like, and it gave me a solid floor on which to walk in otherwise quite difficult circumstances.
Does that mean once people started to see the inevitable talent come through, did that make it easier because people felt, well, we've got to do something with this young man who seems to be showing such amazing skill?
I'd far sooner have had the talent when I did, as a young boy then, than a person with the similar talent nowadays. I think the opportunities now are far, far more risky and far less secure than in my day, because I was helped by scholarships, and virtually all suburbs around London had their own orchestra, classical orchestra. There were lots of opportunities. Music was very highly rated. Nowadays, it seems to be being deliberately dumbed down because it doesn't make the same instant profits as pop or sport.
Now, you studied initially under Wilhelm Kempff. Now, how did that come about? Was that something that again was obvious once people recognised what was going on?
I went to Positano, where he conducted Beethoven masterclasses, and I saw a lot of him, and he helped me a great deal. But other great artists have done the same. I mean, I've always been a tremendous admirer of that great Chilean pianist, Claudio Arrau, and I learnt a lot from him too, especially with regard to how to relax playing. I didn't have formal lessons with him, but I knew him well. We got on exceptionally friendly terms, but he was somehow, despite his incredible abilities, so humble and so almost shy. So that surprised me when I got to know him. But by looking at him during concert, when given the acid test, he was a great example of playing from the top half, not just the fingertips. So he got an orchestral range of dynamics as a result. That was very influential to me, plus the fact that he gave himself lots of time when required. Sometimes the silences meant more than the actual music.
Were you looking at these people as inspiration or looking for technique?
No, I seemed to develop a natural sort of technique. He simply underlined what I felt was the case, but he underlined it by doing the job correctly, and I realised it really did work. But so many pianists play in a limited way physically, and they play with white knuckles, they break strings, but they don't have a large sound. I think you should be kind to your piano and play with a certain give, and that means arms, shoulders, back, the whole lot. The fingertips are just the last part of the chain.
But as you were training, as you were developing your skill, were people trying to change that natural sense that you had? Or were you fighting against that, or did you go with the flow?
I was headstrong, and I still am, I'm afraid. I believe that if you're on the stage, if you're a soloist, you have to be convincing to your listeners. And if you're not convinced by what you're doing, there's no way they can be. I mean, the audience is no fool. And it's very important that you don't play anything unless you are convinced by what the music is and the way you're playing it. It must be inevitable. But that's not to say that it should be twice the same way. If I'm doing a series of concerts, as I am 6 concerts with the RPO in March, I know that the performances will be different of the same piece because of different atmosphere, different acoustic, different mood. That's why I don't like recordings as much as concerts, because they tie you to one predictable plastic repetition. And it's never that way at all. It's always different. Ideally, it'd be nice to have about 20 CDs of an artist playing the same piece, different times, different seasons. Then you can get a fairly good average.
Your career seemed to go from strength to strength. There were a lot of milestones quite early on. There was the Tchaikovsky competition, for example, and playing with Sir Adrian Boult, and also the Royal Festival Hall, which, as I understand it, that was your first experience of the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra.
Proud to say that they were the orchestra who accompanied me during Beethoven's Fifth Concerto for my debut at the Festival Hall. Just before that, I had played Rachmaninoff 3 when I was 18 with Sir Adrian Boult, as you say. But that was the Royal College of Music. But the next two concerts followed on very quickly, two festival halls, both with the RPO. And they've been very loyal to me ever since. I've always been so fond of them because they not only play so superbly, but they're dynamic and they're very friendly. And no nonsense. You know, there's nothing affected about them. And I hate affectation in anything. I think it's important to be direct.
So these pieces of music, which are coming to again, I guess, they've always been with you. I'm always fascinated to find out whether you will always play it in the same way, or whether you're always learning a different aspect of the piece. Whether the music is, do you see the same music now than you did as you did 60 years ago?
No, it's different, but it should never be self-consciously different. It should just happen, owing to experience of life. Meeting people, going to places, it does develop you in a way. And I don't think I'd change the cunning and the wisdom I've built up over the last 70 years now for a much younger lifestyle without that. I think it is an enriching process. I think music always gives far more to you than you can possibly give to it in the end. I mean, I've shedded buckets, as we all have, making music. But in the end, you get far more back, peace of mind, and I think strength of mind. It helps a great deal. And I think it's tragic that it's so underrated nowadays as a very powerful force because of its intangible spiritual qualities.
Do you have the pieces under your fingers, or do you always have to go back to the score? And if you do go back to the score, are you always looking for something fresh?
I don't look for anything fresh. It happens. I say to myself, I was preparing something the other day which I played hundreds of times. I thought, why on earth didn't I see that fingering before? Why on earth didn't I see that little breath mark there before? I never have. So I'm playing things now quite differently. In fact, I'm doing the complete Beethoven sonatas cycle this season, both in Bridgewater Hall, Manchester, and Cadogan Hall in London. And I'm 5/8 through in London. Recital number 5 was recent. And I played the Hammerklavier after the interval, which, as you know, is a massive work, nearly 50 minutes or so. And somebody who was timing it in the public said to me that the slow movement alone was 5 minutes quicker than my recording of it back in 1970s. Now, I wasn't aware of that, but it shows you that what you're saying is right. There are changes, but they shouldn't be self-conscious changes. Interpretation shouldn't be a physical and conscious thing. When conductors say to me, rehearsing a concerto, what do you do here? I say, I don't do anything, it has to be. And then I play it to them. They say, I see what you mean. But if it's affected, it becomes earthbound, and the spark is lost.
I guess also any performance is a chemical reaction. You have yourself, you have how you're feeling on the day, you have the instrument, you have the acoustics in the hall, and over 60 years you've probably had a lot of chemistry going on.
Yes, and I'm grateful for some of the early music clubs and some of the concerts, well, probably far more than some, which have offered me poor instruments because you somehow managed to overcome it. And again, as I said before, the public is no fool, and they somehow get sight of what or get an idea mentally of what you're trying to produce, despite any vagaries of the piano. Nowadays, I'm pleased to say that I get far better pianos, and I think the standard of pianos has never been higher than now, in general. But in the early days, certainly, there were some beaten-up pianos which I managed to help destroy.
Well, hopefully you're not going to be destroying the pianos in the venues. I think 7 venues in all that you're going to be performing in this tour, ranging from the Royal Festival Hall, which I guess is possibly an emotional home for you, I suppose.
It is, yes.
But also places like the Royal Derngate and also the Waterside in Aylesbury as well. So they're all quite different places.
They are indeed, yeah. Looking forward to very much indeed. Again, looking forward to the challenge of not just the performances, but coping with the disparate acoustics and atmosphere that happens inevitably on those occasions. One of the great joys is the fact that you're given an unlimited passport because music is an international language. So you travel far and wide. I played in Beijing for the first time last year, and they've kindly asked me back this year. And that was a real experience because although I'd played in Hong Kong many times and Japan, I'd never been to mainland China as such. And that was a real eye-opener last year.